One. Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter on this camera. TikTok over here on the side. My name is Jared Budlong. I am running as an independent write-in candidate for governor in Alabama this year. And tonight is a special live stream on Wednesday, August 24th. We are doing a live stream, Ask Me Anything, or AMA. So we have my campaign manager sitting in the wings waiting to receive questions, as well as some pre-populated questions from a couple other platforms that people have submitted on. So we're going to do some rapid fire Q&A, Ask Me Anything. So I think we're ready. We do have a special guest who should be popping on at some point, and when they pop up, I will have them jump in. But as of right now, I think we are good to go. Amanda, if you will confirm that I sound good on your end for the other platforms. TikTok, you haven't said that you can't hear me, so I have to assume you can. So we're going to go from there. Taylor, I cannot hear you, so let me bring you in.
Oh, yeah, I realize you have to bring me in to hear me.
Oh, you know what? I won't be able to hear you without having... Hold on. We shouldn't have an echo because nobody's in the meet, so we should be good. Give me 1 second. We're going to switch over. All right, Taylor, go ahead.
Hey.
I should be hearing you. Try that one more time.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Nope. See, I'm getting an echo.
Echo,
Fantastic.
echo.
Echo.
Yeah. All right. So what? I think I know what we can do.
Oh, no, Pastor Greg Locke is live now.
Greg Locke is live now.
Okay.
We're
I know
having
what
to
we can do.
compete with
All right.
that.
The meet's gonna go away.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's try that. I assume you can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
And I can still hear you. Perfect. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
All right, we're good. Cool. All right, we're good. All right, so let's do this. Now that we're all fixed on the tech side. Right. That's what happens when you do things live. All right. So I'm going to try and pay attention and look at the camera so that you guys see me focusing on you rather than the setup. So if you see me look slightly off camera, that's why. I'm looking down to make sure I'm echoing. That's not good. Amanda, am I still echoing for you? It's gonna be one of those days. Good to go. All right, cool. All right. Dubtech, I mean, we're doing an AMA. If you want to ask me a question, you can. Let's make it quick. And we're going to test TikTok to make sure I can actually hear you, because I should be able to. All right, Dubtech, you are up, and I should be able to hear you. Go for it. Oh, you know what? The rest of the people can't hear you, though. So hold on. All right, try that again. Hey, Dubtech. Yes. I'm getting a lot of noise, though. Yeah, it sounds like a turbo. or
Yeah, how's it now?
Much better. All right, cool. Okay. So this is an AMA, so let's try to keep it short and quick, because we have a lot of people that think I want to ask questions. So ask a question or two, and then we'll move on to some other questions. You can come hang out until our other guest shows up. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so one of my big things, I just moved here to Alabama, and single father, 4 kids, full time, And healthcare in this state is really concerning. For instance, not having dental healthcare. I work 2 jobs. I'm an IT professional. I don't make enough to pay for insurance. I make $10 an hour. It's insane. I get by, but the fact that healthcare in this state is in the state that it is, like, I just found out my youngest son's autistic, and I am scared to death.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about that because the old school frame of mind that people have here about like things like the lottery and stuff like that, and I don't see how that's still an issue today in 2022. And I don't know. I want to see that change, but I don't know how we can make it change. If it hasn't already.
Can you clarify what do you mean? Like you don't see how the lottery is still an issue?
Yeah, I don't understand the concept of why that is still an issue.
Of getting the lottery?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why the state has blocked it currently, but I will give my spiel. So the lottery for me is not a valid way for the state to fund general welfare. Generally, the poorest among our state or any people group that's going to have access to the lottery, they are disproportionately spending more of their income to try and get out of poverty, statistically speaking. So if we're going to use it as a way of raising general welfare funding through taxes, the lottery system is not the best way, in my opinion, that I've seen. No one's presented one that doesn't disproportionately affect poor people. So what I would rather do is get it from somewhere else.
I understand that. You're just taking away from the poor and putting money back in. It's not really going to do much.
Well, it will put money in the system. Like, I don't deny that. My concern is there are other ways we could get funding that don't put that burden on the people we say we're trying to help. Let's find a method that either A, doesn't put a disproportionate amount of burden on those people, or a resource or a service or something else we can offer that gives something tangible or something immediate back to those people. So, let's if we bring up marijuana as an example, if that was legalized and we sold marijuana, people are getting something for their for the money they're putting in, rather than a potential out of poverty. So, like, it's a conflict there for me. Like, we're not actually helping them immediately. We're hoping to help them through the tax revenue going back into hopefully their schools.
Yeah, true. Well, and that's my main concern. There's a lot of things the state can be doing to help poverty, because there's such a large percentage of Americans that are disproportionately placed into poverty, and this state doesn't seem too concerned with that.
Yeah. Nope. It's a whole other issue. We don't want to get people out of poverty, and we don't want to help the people that are in poverty. We want to keep them there. And, there's different, we'll say theories as to why, but it seems really easy to, if people are in poverty, they are more likely to do things that they don't want to do. And it's easier to keep them, quote unquote, in line. It's probably the way to phrase that when on a live.
Yeah, that is true. People in poverty don't have as much of a voice. And just like the TikTok you posted the other day about the prison system, that's hand in hand with poverty.
Yep.
And these poor people can't do anything about it. And it's, oh man.
Yeah.
It gets me going.
Cool. Do you have any other quick fire questions? Otherwise, we'll start jumping into some other ones.
No, that's all right, man. You do
that's
your
it.
thing. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna follow your journey. I mean,
appreciate it.
You can make this happen.
Yeah, that's the goal. We have enough people. We have to get in touch with them. So if it's safe to do so, talk to the people around you and make sure they know they have somebody who actually just cares about them and not putting money in their pocket. Because, like, I have a job. I don't want to do this. I'm doing it because nobody else is. So that's where we're at.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. All right, man.
Awesome.
It's been good talking to you.
You too. We'll catch up soon.
See ya.
Bye.
You ready for some questions, Jared?
Yeah, Taylor, the disembodied voice. What do you got?
Okay, so I posted on the Alabama Reddit, the Birmingham Reddit, and the Huntsville Reddit to get some questions, and I gave them all the links. I don't know if they're watching, so if you are watching, let us know. Okay.
Yeah, say hey.
Say hey. So from the Alabama subreddit, Pirate WC said, "Why run?" Okay, this one's a 3-part question.
A
So
multi-parter.
a multi-parter. So the first part is why run as an independent?
Yeah. So 2 parts. The short and sweet answer is when I decided to run, it was like a week, maybe 2 weeks before the deadline to sign up to run in a party. And at least on the Democratic Party, you have to submit a filing fee in order to run as a Democrat in the party. So that money goes into the Democratic Party, and they use that as a qualifier of like, hey, is this somebody that is serious, so to speak. And the filing fee is a percentage of the salary for the position that you are running for. So as a candidate running for governor, I would have to file a third of the annual salary for the governor's position as that filing fee. And I'm not going to try and do the math live while we're here, but it's about $2,500, just ballpark somewhere in
Did
that
you
range.
say a third or 3%?
Sorry, 3%. I said a third last time too. I do that almost every time. Sorry, it is
You
3%.
say a third and then you say $2,500, and I
Yeah.
know that math's not right.
Yeah, it's not. So 3% every time. 3% of the salary of the position you're applying for, which turns out to be about $2,500. And, with 2 weeks to raise money, like it wasn't going to be a possibility. And then the flip side of that, the longer answer is I don't identify as a Democrat. Like the parties, Democrat, Republican, neither of them, we can throw libertarian in there. I don't align myself with any of those three because those are the 3 parties that are going to be on the ballot in November. And specifically on the Democratic side, there's a lot of people who have given me pushback on that. And they're like, hey, you could run on that platform. And I'm like, yeah, I could. And I also would have to compete with other people that are running on the same platform that have very different views than I do. And there's something for me that I can't bring myself to run on the same platform as somebody who's that different from me. Like it just doesn't, to me, that says the party isn't there for a set of beliefs. They are there for other purposes. And the fact that they allow people to pay money to get in their party and then don't help all of them equally to try and get elected says something to me. And there are people that I'm connected to and I've met through TikTok and in person. Thankfully, I've met a few people that are running as Democrats, and like that's up to them. That's cool. I align with their platforms most of the time, not all of it, but we're all people. We're all humans. Like we all have disagreements. It's fine. None of the important stuff, right? I don't disagree with any of the major key points of their platform. But that's their call. They wanted to run as a Democrat, and that's fine. Like that is completely up to them. My experience so far from this campaign is that the people of this state don't vote. A large chunk of them, more than a third, don't vote even in very large elections. And the number that I spit out, if you've been following the campaign for a while, is in 2020 we had 1.4 million people who were registered to vote who didn't vote, and we can compare that to the 950,000 who voted straight party Republican. If you're not familiar, Alabama lets you vote by party, just I want Republican, and you can just check a box, well, fill in a circle, whatever. And you can also say, I want Democrat. So if there's a party on the ballot, you can just check the party. And that number for Republicans was 950,000. For Democrats was 590,000, give or take. And there's 1.4 million people who didn't vote at all. And those are the people I resonate with and I'm trying to talk to. Like if people that normally vote Democrat or Republican align with what I'm saying and they want to vote for me, you're welcome. But we have somebody who's helping with the campaign that is staunch Republican, but hates the prison system and is pissed that neither party wants to do anything different with it. They want to keep the status quo. They want to keep making profit off of the people that are incarcerated. And they know that I don't want that. So they're helping. And it's like, great, you're welcome to come help the campaign. You're welcome to vote for me. I don't care what you voted for in the past, but I'm not going to run on the platform that I don't agree with. So that's kind of the longer answer.
So the next part of that is how are you different from the Democrat and Republican parties? I think that's a nuanced question, but
yeah, I'm not a party. So, I mean, that's like there are some differences. So, for instance, there is nothing in the Alabama Democratic Party's bylaws that I could find via keyword search. I'm going to give that caveat. I didn't read the 50 pages worth of document because I'm not running on their platform. But they don't mention anything about healthcare, uteruses, pregnancy, birth, or anything else related to someone's choice in their healthcare options. It's not in their bylaws. You don't have to agree with anything. And that's been a very contentious point for one of the candidates this year. So it's not necessarily that I don't align with their platform. It's that their platform is too vague for me to feel comfortable putting myself in that bucket. I will say there are some places that I don't align with, and that's the pro pro law and order stance that they have in their bylaws. And like, I'm not saying we shouldn't have a society that has people who follow the rules, but pro law and order is pro police, and the police aren't here for the people. So I can't align myself with that bullet point. And the frustrating part for me is that they will call out pro law and order, but not call out pro healthcare. And like, that's, I don't know, that's weird to me. Like that, I say weird. Whatever. It's not enough importance for them to make that qualifying distinction.
So here's an interesting one. Do you have a plan to help relieve the I-10 corridor congestion? I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know. I guess that would be an infrastructure question.
Which part of I-10 are we talking about? Like, so we're
that was just from the Alabama one, so they didn't say specifically.
Yeah, if you're watching this, please shoot me a message in the feedback form on the website, because I'm not sure what you mean. I've never heard anything on I-10 called the I-10 corridor. Now, the only thing I can think that they mean, and I'm taking a stab in the dark at this point, but I have to assume they mean the horrible traffic coming from Mobile to Baldwin County, or from Baldwin County over to Mobile across the I-10 bridge.
Jonathan said probably definitely the Bayway.
Yeah, look, I've never heard it called the I-10 corridor. So, Taylor, I think I'm getting a little feedback. Can you turn your volume down some?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's what I have to assume they're talking about. And I will say I don't want to impose taxes or tolls to help pay for that. Do I have a plan for it? No. No one who has complained about that problem has presented a solution to me, or even wanted to engage in a conversation about how to get around that problem. So if you're not in the lower Alabama area currently, there's a proposal for a replacement of the I-10 Bayway with a toll bridge that will cost locals $30 to $40 a month in fees, even though it's a federal highway that should be funded, I would assume, with federal funding, but that's outside of my area of expertise. And like, I don't pretend to have answers to things that I don't know the answer to. So if you have answers, or that's something you're passionate about, join the team and come help us find a solution. I'd be happy to talk about
it. Okay, this one just popped up on TikTok. Roxanne said, "What plans do you have in regards to gender affirming care?"
That's already been signed into law. Unfortunately, if we're talking about the teenage side, it looks like the federal government's going to turn that down on ADA reasons. So the not Alabama, the American Disabilities Act, they tried to use that, and they're trying to undo that through the ADA rules, because of the way transgender people were diagnosed previously, which is no longer valid. So they use that same rule in some of the laws. So they're trying to overturn that. I'm hoping that works. If not, I need your help as voters to get people installed in the legislature who will be willing to repeal the law that we already passed. If we're talking about, generally speaking, for all transgender individuals in our state, not just the youth who have been targeted previously, at best, I can try to veto bills that come in and put pressure on the legislature. If we don't vote more people into the legislature who believe the same way we do, they can just override that. So I will do my best with the powers that I have, but this is a group project, as the phrase, as the saying goes. Like, it's a group project. Don't sleep at the table with drool coming down your mouth and wake up an hour before class is over, the last class, and be like, hey, where are we at? It's like, no, like, we're all in this. We all got to do it. So let's do this, right? We got to do it together.
But to put a very fine tip point on it, Jared does support, gender affirming care. Just to
Oh yeah.
make sure if anybody just tuned in for half of that, we got that little sound
Yeah.
bite.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Okay, and then sorry, I had to get up. I had to stand up. All right, let me get back to my questions. I have to plug in my computer. Okay, the next one would be if elected, how do you intend to wade through what appears to be very deep and entrenched party politics to address the issues that matter to and affect the constituents?
Say that one more time for me.
The short answer is, how do you intend to, okay, I'll read it again. If elected, how do you intend to wade through what appears to be very deep and entrenched party politics to address the issues that matter and affect the constituents? So how are you going to bridge that gap? Wade through the party politics.
Yeah, so again, I'm not tied to a party, so I literally don't care. Like, if somebody's in the Republican Party and wants to help the people of our state, let's go. Like, that's fine. If you're a Democrat and you want to help the people, awesome, let's do it. If you're a libertarian, like, if you want to help the people, not yourself, like, let's go. Like, that's fine. Just like I don't want to use their names. I don't know if they're. I think Christina. I think she's fine. She's vocal about it. Like, Christina's in our state, staunch Republican, but is willing to help. And like, yes, let's do that. I'm willing to do the same thing in the legislature. Like, my pushback will be very public. Like, what I've talked about in other meetings is, if it's not something I can do directly as governor, because there's a lot that I can't, let's come up with a proposal to send to the legislature and say, hey, the state has talked about this. Like, as a people, here's a plan. Let's fix the foundation program. Like, the way we fund our schools, not just the allocation, but the actual funding piece. Like, let's come up with a plan and like present it. And if/when they say no, then we can publicly go, hey, guess what? The legislature doesn't care what you have to say. So what are we going to do next? Like, there are things that I can't do, but I have no problem speaking out to either of them and saying, you're not listening to your constituents. Because like, I'm not tied to their party. There's no retaliation there in that regard. They could impeach me and do all kinds of other things that way, but like, I'm not tied to their party, so I'll speak up against them. I don't have a problem doing that. Just like I mentioned earlier, like, I'm not going to be a Democrat because I don't align with a lot of the things that are in there, a lot of the openness that's in their bylaws.
Let's see. Now I hear the echo. Okay. On Facebook, we have, what's your plan for seniors, veterans, and disabled people? A lot of them do not qualify for food stamps, housing, etc. And that's from Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse, we actually started looking into that 2 weeks ago, I believe, through the Department of Human Resources. And I was speaking to somebody at a summit recently down here in Lower Alabama, and they previously worked at DHR. So I'm trying to schedule a meeting with them in the future so that we can discuss where the rules that Alabama sets stop and where the rules that are set at the federal level start. Because everything in the state law basically says, hey, the board for the Department of Human Resources is in charge of the rules alongside the commissioner, which both of those, that person and that group, like, I have a large say in that. I would be on the board, and then I would appoint the commissioner. So like, there's some control on that end, as long as we aren't restricted by what the Social Security Act dictates. And unfortunately, that's a very large document, so we haven't finished reading through that to figure out where the state pieces are. this would be my call to action. Hey, if you're very familiar with the SSA, we would love to hear more about that and where the restrictions are for states versus where the federal cap is. What I do know is typically the federal ones set a pretty broad standard, and then the states narrow the benefits or the rights of its citizens and residents. So I'm hopeful that the federal guidelines are broad enough that we can actually start helping people. One thing I did find out while speaking to them is the amounts that are awarded are decided at the state level, not necessarily the qualifications. That's what we're looking to, is like where the drop off is. Like, hey, once you start making X, you no longer qualify. But how much you get when you qualify is, it looks like, completely up to the state. So we'll be looking at that as well.
So Dub Technic said a big problem. One of the reasons he came here was inflation and housing was insanely bad in Colorado, and it's getting just as bad here. So, any thoughts on inflation and unaffordable housing in Alabama?
No specific plans, but I will say there are a few ways we could do it. And again, this is not me saying this is what we're going to do, but there are a couple ways we could help with, specifically on the housing costs. We literally could set caps on rent prices. Like that's an option. We could set additional fees and taxes for unoccupied or vacant properties. So for the last number I saw, I think was 200,000+ non-primary residence domiciles. So they're homes that are not their primary residence that are in the state. And one of the ideas is to put an extra tax on those properties that says, hey, if it's not your primary residence and it's vacant, meaning you bought it for rental and it's not being used, there is an extra tax that goes on top of your normal taxes. And there would have to be some buffer. So it's not like day one of being vacant, the taxes jump up a huge amount. We'll be, I don't know if fair is the right word, but we will be conscious of that problem. Like, you can't immediately, right? Like, you can't immediately do that. That doesn't seem like a logical thing to do, but maybe a tiered setup where, again, we're spitballing at this point, but
he said, "Are you serious?
week,
Rent caps can be real?"
Yeah, no, I mean, they can be. Yeah. Now, again, these are ideas that we could pull off as a state. How much of that the governor can implement is a different question, and like that's where we have to actually dig into the policies and figure this stuff out. I will say this, Dub, if this is something you're passionate about, jump on the team and help us research that end of it, because we got our hands full with the main 3 points, and we're doing this in the back end. Like that, we're doing the other pieces. Like, okay, cool. I need a break from looking at healthcare, policy. Let me jump into X, and so we're doing it as we can. But if it's something you're passionate about, jump on and let's help.
Somebody said, clever Bast on TikTok said, will you be doing anything to attract more industry to Alabama? And what about environmental things?
I don't mind attracting industry. I will say that the industries that come here, if I'm in control of that at that point, they will not be here to exploit our residents or our resources. Like that's not the way this works. If we bring people in and as a business, and then all they do is pay people below a livable wage, are they actually helping our state? And my answer is no, they're not helping our state at that point. They might look good on paper, but we're not actually helping the people. And like the state isn't a thing without the people that live here. So if people can't afford to live, why are we doing it? Would be that reply. Regarding the environmental, I really want to implement something along the lines of a triple bottom line accounting methodology, which if you look at regular business, you have a single bottom line. Like you have your like your profit, right? You're looking at profit, and that's all that matters for a business is profit level. And the triple bottom line would be adding human cost and environmental cost for you doing business. So if we bring up, let's say Amazon, as let's say a hypothetical scenario where there's a tornado coming to an Amazon warehouse, and they decide not to let their employees go because there's a tornado, and say, hey, no, you got to hang out here and do work. And then, I don't know, 20 people die because a tornado hits the warehouse. Like, they aren't held accountable for that as a business, not long term. So finding a way of saying, like, hey, guess what, your business costs lives, so there's a fee for that. And like, it sounds weird to say that, but all they care about is money. So we have to take money away.
What
Space
is
moms, how are you?
Hey there, Jared. How's it going?
It's good. Get settled, and we're gonna ask a couple more questions from a couple platforms, and we'll let you ask a few. So,
do you want to go ahead and let her ask, and then I've got a couple on TikTok.
yeah, actually, yeah. So, I actually don't know your real name. I know you by Space Moms. So,
That's okay. My name is Robin.
Robin, perfect. Well, it's nice to know your name, and nice to see you again.
Yeah, I'm crazy about you, actually. I'm extremely hopeful, and I feel very positive about what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
I have been in the school systems in Alabama since 2008 with children. And it's not good, my friend. It's not great. And I mean, I live in what some people would say is the most progressive city in Alabama. We have supposedly this great school system here, and it's rough, man. I have to tell you, it's rough. School lunches are abysmal.
Yeah.
Last year in the 10th grade in the Dothan City school system, my daughter did not receive a history textbook because they didn't have one.
Scope group books. They've got classroom books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is a major concern for me. We are very much seeing that education is really important, and our kids they're not being served well in most of the schools here. So that would be my thing that I would want to ask you about is, your thoughts on that. What if you have any ideas about how we could support our teachers, support these schools in the right way, so that the kids benefit, the teachers benefit, the school staff, everybody benefits.
Yeah, it's twofold. Unfortunately, one of them is something I can't do a whole lot about, and that is the funding, the actual total amount of funding available. That's tax revenue, and the way the foundation program works is something I can't help a whole lot with. I'm going to turn your volume up a little bit because I think they're having trouble hearing you on the other platforms. So let's see, Austin, let me know if that's better. We're going to see if that helps. So, all right. So funding. We have two problems regarding funding. It's the inflow of funding, so tax revenue, and then the other problem is how that money gets distributed across the different districts. And the distribution side looks like that's, I'm going to use the term easier. I'm not saying easy, but it's easier to change than the foundation model, because the foundation model is a part of our Constitution. So we're going to have a hard time changing that. That is the way our state does constitutional amendments. The people can't request a constitutional amendment. The legislature has to propose one, approve it themselves, and then submit that to the people. We have no way of doing it as a group, which brings up a slew of other issues. But knowing that, attacking the foundation program and trying to dismantle that doesn't seem like the right method for me right now. The next thing for me is to try and redo how we allocate our funding. So we do that through a resource allocation, and the short and sweet answer is we basically find an average cost for certain numbers of students and say, hey, this is how much your budget is, irregardless of the actual needs of the individual students at that specific district and that specific school. So like, we've got to fix that first, to where we're focusing on the individual district's needs rather than rather than the average, and then letting them figure out how to distribute that amongst themselves, because
Sure.
it's frustrating, because like we end up, we use property taxes and local, it's not just property, but local taxes through properties or business licenses, or I think it's use taxes is the other one of the other major ones. But your local taxes are one way to fund your schools, and the part that is making it really confusing for people to follow is the state uses averages to get your budget total, and we're going to use round numbers, right? So let's say the state says, hey, you get $100,000. This, like Baldwin County, right? It's more than that, but you get $100,000. That's how much you need to run your schools according to us and our algorithm. And based on your property values, you have to support yourself with X amount through your local funding, and then the state and the federal funding will make up the gap. And then that is how much you are guaranteed through the way the laws are written. And then if you want more, you have to talk to your local municipalities to raise more funding. So for example, in Daphne, it's a shameless plug, that's why I'm getting into detail. In Daphne, on the 30th of August, in a few days, we will be voting on a $3 million increase for education funding in our district. And so $3 million sounds like a lot, because it sounds like 3 million, but that's not the way the math works. The short answer is a mill is 1/1000th the value, so the assessed value of a property. Okay. The really confusing part is that residential, agricultural, and I think it's forest properties. There's like three. There's a class 3 for certain properties. Residential is the one that stands out because that's what everybody's worried about. That those properties are assessed at 10% of their real value. So again, if we use round numbers again, if your house is worth $100,000, it's assessed at 10,000. So that 3 million is 3/1000th of $10,000. So to use an average that I think the state put out, if your house is worth $300,000, the 3 million increase that we're talking about is $90 a year. So like, it's not a huge increase per household. It is still more. And like, and the people have brought it up. It's like, hey, well, how does this help people who are poor and can't pay their bills? And I was like, it doesn't, but that's also not what that's not the point of the tax. Taxes are never meant to help you pay your bills. That's not, but that's the very long answer, and I went long-winded, even though this is supposed to be rapid-fire questions, because we have an election coming up on the 30th. If you're in Daphne, make sure that your polling location is double check your polling location, because it's a special election. It's probably not at your normal location. I know mine's not. So show up on the 30th. Vote your conscience. I know which way I will be voting. I know that our city does not have the same funding as the cities around us. So I'll be voting my way. But be informed at least. It's not going to cost you a whole lot per year.
Thank you for that, Jared.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate you being a person who cares. You're a good egg.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions off the top of your head? Otherwise, I'll let Taylor jump in and ask a few more while you think of some.
No, let her jump in. I mean, truthfully, I've been following your platform. I support you. And it's just the school system. That's kind of my mom. That's kind of my mom brain thing going on. I thank you for taking the time to answer that question. I appreciate you a great deal, Jared.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing your platform, because if you guys aren't familiar, at least their TikTok platform is much larger than mine is currently. So your support means a lot. I mean, there are plenty of accounts that have a large following who are not outwardly supportive. And it's fine. Like, they don't want to risk their account, and I get it. Some people use it for money, so like, they don't want to risk their job. I get it. But they haven't outwardly been supportive, which is okay. But it makes me appreciate your support more. So,
well, if you roll back through my videos, you'll learn very quickly that I just tend to I say what I believe I'm very honest about that kind of stuff on here, so I know I'm not worried about that at all. But
Yeah,
yeah, you got our support down here or up here from Huntsville.
I appreciate it.
But I will be watching, and you take care of yourself, man. Have a wonderful evening, and
Thank you.
We got you. We got you up here.
Cool. If anything pops in your head, put it in the comments, and Taylor will keep an eye out for it.
Thank you. Thank
Cool.
you for sure. Take care. Bye,
Thanks.
Taylor. Bye, Jared.
Bye.
Bye. It was nice to meet you.
right.
Okay, so
Let's jump back in.
yeah, Christina May on TikTok said, "What is your biggest goal if you are elected?" And I think I know the answer, but
My biggest, I mean, if you've followed me for a bit, you understand. I hope you understand, like what sparked my campaign to run in the first place, and that's the prison system. We have to fix that. Like, healthcare needs to happen, education needs to happen. The prison system has to be addressed. Not enough people call it what it is, which is slavery, and like people push back on that term, but it's literally what we do. The federal government does not restrict slavery as long as it's a part of a punishment for a crime. Our state says that we don't do slavery, but in practice, there is no difference. If you have a habitual felony offender act that lets you commit 3 felonies and then a fourth one that is the highest level. My brain just went dead for a second on the term. I think it's a class A felony. You now have life without parole. You are now owned by the state and can be used for labor. And if that's not slavery, like, I don't know what else you guys want to call it if you don't want to call that slavery, because like I'm just going to call it what it is, whether or not people want to. Like, that's what we do. We use our prison systems for profit, and that's the state, but also local, not local, but private organizations. So the people that provide food, the people that provide the phone services, anything that isn't using the labor of the incarcerated individuals has the potential to be run by a for-profit organization. And the idea from the public perception is to offload that onto another organization so that it isn't the state having to organize it.
but also I know this isn't my AMA, but I also want to point out the fact that, like, I don't remember who you said it was, but if certain people are able to like cut the expenditure of the prison, they are able to pocket the surplus. So I feel like that is direct for
we have to be honest about it. Like, if they are not a nonprofit organization, like they are an organization that is in business to make money. Their goal and their responsibility, especially a publicly traded company, their goal is to make profit, to make revenue that can then be shared with their shareholders. Like, they aren't doing their job as a company if they're not doing that. Do I agree that that's a good company to handle resources that you need to live? No. Like, that's a bad idea, because you will then skimp on resources to retain extra profit to send to your shareholders. And it is exacerbated, I think is the right word, inside of a prison system where there are no alternatives. So when you're handed an old, I don't think moldy is the right word because it wasn't moldy, but like a discolored hot dog, that's your option. Like, you either eat or you don't eat, and you don't have a choice except maybe the commissary. But guess what? That's another place that you have to spend your money as an incarcerated individual, who you get through your family and friends on the outside, who pay a ridiculous fee to send you the money in the first place. And then the prices are higher there than they would be in the free world. So like it's not a good solution. So
okay, so Joshua Norris on TikTok asked, and I tried to get him to clarify, but he did not. He said, what would you do for the conservatives who are having a hard time feeling safe too? What would you tell us or tell them?
You have a hard time feeling safe in what regard? Like,
like I said,
yeah.
if you can clarify that, we will clarify with Jared. But yeah, so clarify that and we'll answer. And then I'm gonna go back to the Reddit questions.
Okay.
Let's see. Um, I don't know how to say this, but it's from Reddit. It's KI4CLZ. And he said this wasn't a technical question. I just formatted it. He wanted he wanted to see like your campaign contributions and stuff. I'll talk to you about it later, but they wanted transparency in like who has donated.
Oh yeah.
So
No.
I'm
Yeah.
asking you who has funded your campaign, Jared?
Yeah. It's all people so far. It's everyday people. Every campaign has to be transparent on their funding. They have to report, depending on what part of the election cycle you're in. It's either quarterly, yearly, monthly, or weekly, and I think daily for some of the elections. I, I'm worried about right now, which is monthly. So every month on the first Tuesday, we have to submit our campaign contributions, and that is through a site called FCPA. And I have taken that a step above just submitting it to the state's website. They give you a PDF version of like, hey, here's your breakdown, and I publish those on our campaign website. So if you go to the donate section, there's a sub page called FCPA, and you can view the two campaign reports that we've had to file so far, and it lists out any donations over $100 are broken down by person, and then the expenditures are broken out as well. So you're more than welcome to go check that out. Actually, I'll take this time to apologize. I meant to read those off as a new video in August, and I didn't. So I will resume doing that next month. Uh, Basically, when we fill out the report, the idea is to actually just read off and say thank you to everybody who's contributed, because you're individual people and you're supporting this campaign. It wouldn't work without you.
Yeah, I responded to him and I was like, I think you're gonna like the answer.
Yeah.
It is regular people. Okay, Tiny Kingdom Tarot from Reddit said, what is your stance on abortion access? How will you help improve education? Do you have any plans for helping improve infrastructure? So we'll take that one at a time.
Great.
So what is your stance on abortion access?
Stand on abortion access. Anyone who has a uterus should have access to an abortion, whether they want it or need it.
Okay, next is how will you help improve education?
We're starting with funding, which we kind of touched on that earlier with Space Moms, but we're starting with funding because we have classrooms that don't have enough books for all of their students, and they have to end up sharing them. So we have to start with resources, and I don't just mean for physical items. So books are a good example, but it's also paraprofessionals, teachers' aides to help them with that extra one-to-one time that a student needs, because not every student learns the same way, so they need extra attention. If you have one teacher for every, even in ideal situations, I think the state recommended amount is 1 per 25. Like, you can't, even if you spent one day with each of those kids, you can't give them enough attention to help them learn in their way, because like you just don't have enough time. There's not enough time in the month for one extra meeting per kid, right? So not enough time there. So additional resources would help with physical resources, books, computers, whatever else, library funding, but also extra people, psych counselors, things like that. I think Alice has mentioned in the past that the number of counselors per student is scary on the ratio. It's like 700 to 1 for the schools. So you have to get up above like 800, I think, is where the next threshold is, where you get a second counselor. And I'm going off of memory right now, so but bear with me there. But it's not a small number. And again, they're not meeting with those students every day, but that's a large number of youth to be handled by one person. So things like that are where the resources would go.
Hey, sorry. Okay, so and then the last one was infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
I
Plans to
know
improve it.
And so infrastructure is an interesting term because people mean it to mean different things. So some people mean it by physical, like roads and infrastructure in that regard, and some people mean communications, like cellular access, internet access, broadband Wi-Fi, just covering the entire state. I don't know which one you mean. I don't have a direct plan for either of those currently. The biggest thing for me is, for the road side at least, is finding out where our money is actually going, and if we need to if we actually need additional funding for that area, or if we just need to spend it more wisely. Because a lot of people bring up the gas tax, and that was signed into law by a governor, but it was passed by the legislature, so I can't just undo it. I would have to, at best, call a special session and ask the legislature to undo things or repeal that law. I don't even want to say we're going to do that yet, because I don't know if that funding is even necessary. If it's necessary, we'll keep it. If it's not necessary, sure, let's try to fight against it and push back. I'm not sure, because our state is not transparent on how funding is actually spent.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh. I think that depends on the day. I'm going to go with some kind of coffee flavor most of the time. And then if I'm not wanting something extra, it would be like vanilla bean. Not vanilla, but vanilla bean. Specifically, this is not a plug. They're not sponsoring us. Contributions, but Breyer's vanilla bean is probably my favorite. Just plain, like, I just want some ice cream.
Breyers, do you want to sponsor us?
We're not taking corporate donations. So
Breyers, do you want to donate ice cream?
you can sponsor an event and we'll hand out ice cream to people. That'd be great.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Why not run for a local office first and get some experience?
Yeah. How's that working out? Like I'm not, like, what local office are you thinking? Because, like, the reason I'm running, like, I think that was on TikTok, but like
Yeah, it was.
I got fed up in October when I found out our state was allocating 20% of our COVID funds, $400 million, on prisons, and no one running for office wanted to say anything about it. Nobody running for governor. I'll say that. There were probably people running for their local districts, and that's fine.
He said, "What does that answer mean?"
Yeah, there's like a 30-second delay, so I'm following up on it.
Okay.
Do you want me to run as a constable? Like, would that be beneficial for me to eventually be governor? And would the delay of 4 years and all the people dying in our prisons, would that be worth getting some experience in a local office that is run completely different than at the state level? Like, they're different positions. Like, I get the mentality of, like, hey, get into politics, get to understand how the system works. I don't want to get to understand how they're doing it. It doesn't work now. I don't care how they're doing it. It doesn't work. We have people becoming more and more poor every year. We have more people being put in prisons on average every year. It goes down and up periodically, but we have more than we should have in prison. And delaying and waiting does not seem like a valid decision. You said any experience can help. Well, I have experience with the type of role that I'm getting into, which is organizing groups of people to accomplish a task. I'm a project manager by trade. Like, that's what I do every day.
He said, "Bring me in, please. Ex-politician can help if you want. Hey, fill out a volunteer form. Let's go."
No, I mean, well, helping. This is an AMA, so, like, we're here to ask questions. Like, like Oakdale, are you in Alabama and you're wanting to help? Like, I don't follow what you mean.
Oh, I think he meant, like, invite him to the live.
You can't click invite. I mean, I can invite you. I just don't know. Like, I don't know if this is the right time for this discussion.
We can. Do you want to just set up a separate meeting and talk about it live?
I mean, we can. There's so this is a good point to mention two things. My schedule is openly available for anyone to schedule a meeting with me. So if you're watching this video and you want to have a conversation similar to what Taylor and I are having right now, go to the website that's linked in the bio of the platform you're watching this on and click schedule a meeting. Pick a day and time that works for you, and it will go on my calendar. You don't have to go through a secretary. You don't have to go through anybody else. It just auto schedules it on my calendar. My one request is that we do it publicly if you're not sharing personal information. Because I want my meetings to be as public as possible so that we can be transparent with what we're talking about and the decisions we're trying to come to for the state. And also, there's no question about what I know or don't know at a time. I want that to be clear. Oakdale, sure. I'll bring you up for a minute, man. I guess. Oakdale, can you put you got your camera on? How's it going?
Hey, Jared.
Hey.
Can you hear me, Jared?
I can. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. No, I'm not here to question. I didn't even want to talk to you about your policies, get into the politics of it. I was just going to offer you, if you want it, I mean, I'm not interested in helping anybody that doesn't want help or has things solved. I can only offer tips and advice from pretty good experience of running for 2 terms.
Okay.
Local politics, we're talking vice mayor, city council.
Okay.
In a small city. And so I've been through that process and been in government and have some of the basic understandings of how government operates. People that say you should operate like a business tell me right away they're clueless.
Yeah.
About how, by the way, I'm a very successful business person. This government thing was just a side thing to try to help the community locally.
Okay.
To do my part because I was a little too young for NOM. So I didn't get into the military. I was recruited for college athletics, and all my family served, and so it was a way for me to give back, kind of like military service. Not quite as risky, but that was my whole point in running. It wasn't to change the world, but it was a real eye opener for me. I was fairly sophisticated when I began. I have been Carnegie trained. Are you familiar with Carnegie programs?
Not the specific program, no.
I'm sorry?
No, not specifically.
Okay. But as a part of my career, I've been trained in public speaking, and that was very helpful to me. And I can't emphasize enough for you how hard it is to get people to focus on your message unless you have some very, these are just suggestions, Jared. Mm-hmm. Anything I throw out there is in no way to tell you what to do. This is just I've learned what works. So
sure.
Please take it from that angle. Not that I have all the answers, but people can't focus on more than 2 to 3 items in their scope. They're busy. They have a life. They have a job. They have a career. A politician like you or me is just, they'll look at you for 15, 20, 30 seconds. What are your top 2 or 3 things? I see your chart behind you. But in that vein, I would suggest having some very specific things that you would implement right away. This is what I would do differently. And to get to that point, you need to have a very good understanding of what that position is. I think behind you, the top one's abortion, for example.
Yeah.
Right? And I find it interesting. I'm not going to get into the issue. It's very polarized, as you can see. Look at TikTok.
Yeah.
You got the one side, hands on my mind, the other. But what's sad is if you look at the rest of the world, and I'm not saying we have to do things that way, but what you look at is most of them civilized societies have come down into a compromise. And that's a hard word for a lot of people. But as a politician, it's a critical word. You've got to learn to compromise to get both sides of an issue. For example, on the abortion issue, why can't there be a compromise where for the first 4 or 5 months, pick a date, it's kind of arbitrary, let's say 5 months, okay? Women can have abortions for any reason they want. Nobody gets it can be for sex. They don't care up till 5 months. After 5 months, now you're going to need 2 doctors to say that it's a medical or healthcare issue for the mother. Now, both sides on that issue look at that compromise and go batshit crazy. Oh, no, I want abortion right up till the 9th month. Well, okay, you can take that position, but now you've just lost half the country that see babies that could fully human, fully developed is the word I meant, and yet we're allowing them to kill them literally up till the birth canal. And then the ones that are pro-life say, oh no, we can't allow abortions up to the first 5 months.
Hey, Curtis.
I'm driving at, Jared. It's
Well,
not about the issue.
Well, no.
It's
So
about developing your sense of a legitimate response.
see, here's my problem. Yeah, no. Here's my problem. I don't think I'm hoping you didn't do it intentionally, but you said you didn't want to get into the politics side, but then immediately jumped into it. So like, if you want to give some general advice, that's fine. But you're asking me to restrict the bodily autonomy of half of our population, and I can't do that. Like
Based
I'm
on incorrect opinions. I just want.
So
I'm asking you to refine your thinking to a decision that you can state and support in 2 sentences.
yeah,
But whatever it is,
I support bodily autonomy. I support bodily autonomy. I'm not going to give more rights. I'm not going to give more rights. Okay, this is turning into like an argument and debate, and I'm not. You said you want to give me some advice, so if you would like to give me some general advice on politicking, I'm here to listen to it. Yeah.
Let's go back. I agree with what you're saying. Let me go back and see if I can be helpful in any way to you. That's why I wrote about starting local, because when you get into a local government, you begin to understand how a government is set up with funds and budgets. It's a very weird setup, and one fund cannot. When my sewer fund ran down low, we had to raise sewer rates, even if the park fund was flush.
Yep.
You're thinking, well, you look at the city budget and it shows lots of money. Why are we raising money on sewer?
Sure.
Because it's an isolated fund.
Yep.
And until you understand really deeply how that is set up, it's hard for you to run and give intelligent answers to questions that will be thrown at you about each of these different issues.
Yeah.
But I'll go back another step and say, see if you can focus on 3 items in the Alabama race that if I asked 3 voters on the street, what are your top 3 concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And I did that poll of 100 likely voters, you're going to find out what their top 3 concerns. And you need to have answers and responses and actual ideas, not I'll look in, and I'm not saying any of this sound critical, but the answer of I'll look into it when I get there will not get you a single vote. Your answer is, on this item, here's what I'm going to go after.
Right.
And hopefully you've read the pulse of your Alabama compatriots well enough that sounds like it makes sense to them.
Yeah, so I find it interesting. Like we don't know each other, and I don't think that we've interacted previously. But you're jumping into this assuming that I don't know some of these things, and like I didn't make that assumption. Well, I did hear a few of your answers that I was going to look into that when I got there. Yeah, because there are some things that I don't have an answer to because they're not a part of my key points, which is we want to improve healthcare access to our state by increasing Medicaid. We want to help get better education to all of our students by expanding or changing how we allocate our funding. And I want to fix our prison system by not letting it be for profit. So I have my 3 points. I have my short answers. This is an AMA. It's an Ask Me Anything, which means I may not have the answer because they can ask me anything. So like I don't get where you're coming from. Like there's right, but there's situational awareness that we have to have when we get into a place that we're not familiar with. I go hiking, right? So if I go to a new place to go hiking, I don't assume that everywhere I'm about to step is a safe place to step. I explore it and look and check. I don't just step into it. And it feels like that's what you've done is come into this live, see someone who doesn't have prior political experience and say, hey, you really have to understand that, if you have a budget and a fund for this thing, you can't reuse it somewhere else. Like, yeah, no, I know that. I'm aware. And that's why we're talking about we can't fix the funding income for education. I can't fix that, but we can fix how it's allocated, right? So I'm aware of that.
Okay. How are you getting out to the electorate beyond the TikTok here? How are you getting your basic message out, Jared?
through events that we're attending and occasional door canvassing when we have time. So that's
And you're getting feedback from that,
Mhm.
from the electorate?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's very important to listen to what they're going to tell you,
Mhm.
what they want to hear, in effect, and hopefully what you want to implement lines up with that. Okay. I wish you the best.
Appreciate it.
It's brutal. It's a brutal field. I only recommend it for masochists. It's not for the faint of heart. I will also tell you that there are times when you'll have to. Let me just give you a quick thing to consider. We had a big shopping center. Our little town was not well funded by commercial. It was mostly tax based from, we called it a bedroom community, residents. And we had a big shopping center complex came to us, multi-factor, Home Depot, Sears, one of these big, not a mall, it's not for a thing. And they said to us, look, we'll build in your quarter of the town here if you'll decrease our development taxes for the first 5 years.
Yeah, TIFs.
And
Okay.
the thing is, they go to the community next door, Jared, and they say, we'll build in your community if you'll decrease us for 6 years.
Sure.
And so as a politician, you end up in a bidding war with your fellow cities to try to bring these groups in. And you could take a line that says, well, I'm not going to give the developers any breaks. I mean, I had people come up to me after we didn't get the development. I advocated giving the breaks.
Yeah. So quick reminder, I'm not running for mayor. Like just a.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to relate to you how issues can be very misconstrued
Sure.
as you get into the weeds, where people will look at you and say, "Oh, well, you're giving breaks, or you're doing this," and what you're really trying to do is look out for the greater interest of your fellow Alabama citizens. Maybe to get a Tesla factory in Alabama, you'd have to give breaks. Then somebody will ask you in a question and answer, "Would you give breaks to Tesla to come to Alabama?" Well, an off-the-cuff answer would be, no, I don't think corporations deserve these breaks. Okay, fine. They're going to build in Georgia.
Okay.
So you need an answer and a polish that says, well, there's pluses and minuses, and give that sense that you understand the depths of what's going on.
Right.
It's not as simple as just one side saying, well, you gave breaks there, you did this, you did that.
Yeah.
It's a tough field, Jared. I wish you the best.
Appreciate it. Well, if you want to have a further discussion, you can schedule a meeting. We're going to continue with the AMA. So have a good rest of the night. Yep.
Thank you for letting me in.
Yep.
All right, Jared.
I'm working on it.
Close me out.
Gotcha.
All right. Dion says, what, if any, psychological training would be required of prison staff?
Yeah, what training specifically? I'm actually trying to. We have somebody who's hopefully joining the team shortly, who's in that field, at least studying it in college. So we'll be coming up with some ideas. But at the bare minimum, we need to start following standards that aren't created by our own organizations. So right now we have standards that are put in place by the ADOC, Alabama Department of Corrections, and that's problematic to have your own rules for what standards to follow. So we're looking at national standards first, but potentially international standards, because the prisons across the entire state are problematic as well. We, as a country, have the highest rate of incarceration. So we'll be looking at standards that aren't created by the people that are then being held to those same standards.
So basically, they will be getting psychological training, but we're
psychological training specifically. Again, much to Curtis's chagrin, I don't know what that exact training would be.
But you do want it.
Oh yeah, no, they need something. They need something more than they have now, which appears to be very little. I wish Chris that was in here the other day, who used to work there. I'd love to know what his input would be on because he seems rather compassionate and was in the system. So,
Christina said, "Would you require quarterly psych evaluation on prison staff?"
Yeah, I mean, we could implement more often. We can implement testing more often. The concern, the pushback I give people is like that can't be the only thing. So if we want to have more evaluations, we can. I don't know how helpful those are. Again, I'll be relying on those larger standards and people in the profession to make that call.
Dion said, "What are your plans to reduce the incarceration population to alleviate overcrowding and violence?"
So that we're talking about the existing population at this point is what it sounds like.
Mhm.
We are looking at finding the quickest method to release anyone who is the least likely to return back and is not a current danger to society, I think is the best way to say that. We have to review over 25,000 people that are currently incarcerated and figure out where they're at and then make a decision from there. So a part of that is starting with a committee to review all of those cases to find out who makes the most sense to release based on data and where they're at now, regardless of what they were charged with initially. Because people like to say release everybody who's in there for a drug charge, and like in a perfect world, sure, that sounds great. Let's release everybody who was charged with possession of marijuana and is in prison. If those individuals don't have support when they get out of the system, they'll just end up back in the system. So that's not a good actual answer. It sounds great, but it's not a good real answer. So we have to find the people who are least likely to get back in the system and get them out as quickly as possible, while we're then at the same time building support structures in the community, through the state, any avenue possible, so that everyone exiting this ADOC system and re-entering society doesn't end up back in the system.
How will you respond to trying to be it's Dion. How will you respond to trying to be silenced by big corps when it comes to the prison system and the crisis we are in?
Being silenced by them. I hope that that's just a general them trying to keep me quiet. Well, they don't own me currently, so they don't they have no influence over me financially. If we end up in a situation where that is a physical threat, then we'll have to deal with that then. But they have no say over me. I don't. I'm not sure how else to answer that question. Dion, if you want to clarify, because I'm not sure that was a good answer for you, but I'm not entirely sure what you were asking, other than most politicians have had large donations that they then are beholden to and have to do certain things for them.
I'm gonna. This was a comment, kind of in
Yeah.
response to your answer. Lindsay on TikTok said, "Then decriminalize," talking about marijuana. So, do
Oh
you want
yeah,
to touch on that?
yeah. I would love to decriminalize marijuana. Let's go. That's fine. I have no problem doing that. Sounds great. That means
Hope that hope that answers you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Christina has a really good question, and I really like this. There are so many that disagree with quotes helping incarcerated individuals. How do you explain to the Alabama taxpayers that it does affect them?
Unfortunately, the way most people have been taught to think is about money, and that's going to be a large part of it, is actually doing an audit, not just of the prison system, but we've got to audit the entire state, because we've talked about it a lot. The state isn't transparent on how things are done or how things are funded, so we need to find that out so we can literally track all of the funding and how it travels between each department and out of those departments. What I really want to do is get people to understand how much our prison system, not even just the prison system, the injustice system, as I'm calling it, how much it costs them as a person, because it is not an inexpensive part of our state's operating budget. And that is for the amounts that we are aware of. So as an idea of what I mean, we have an operating budget for the Department of Corrections. Let's say it's $500,000 or $500 million. It's more than that, but let's just use round-ish numbers. So 500 million, and that's what we're aware of. That is just state funds goes to prisons. But you also have the profit from ADOC that adds more. I think I'm off camera on some people, but it adds more for the profit they bring in through the products that they make and sell. Depending on the year, sometimes they have losses. But then that's still just the stuff that's explicitly explained in all of our statements. What nobody talks about is that the furniture that we make in ACI, the Alabama Correctional Industries, the furniture that is made by incarcerated individuals, that is sold to other state agencies. So your library, the governor's office, any public agency has to buy their furniture from ACI. So that is more tax revenue that is starting over here that is now being funneled into ADOC that no one talks about. And it's like, okay, cool. Like library funding, like, hey, we don't have enough. You can ask Alice up in Birmingham. Like, they don't get enough funding. It's been cut, and they need more. But when they want to buy a desk, guess what they have to do? They have to buy it from ACI, who's using slave labor in our prisons. And like nobody, like, I guarantee you, no one talks about that on an everyday basis, because I didn't find out about it until the last year and a half or so. Like it's stuff like that that we have to explain to people. You don't understand how your taxes are being spent. Like, let's start there and go from that point. On a subconscious level, we have to start shifting people's minds about the fact that people inside prisons are still human. Like they're human beings. Like I'm favoriting is the term that TikTok uses, but I'm favoriting comments on a popular video that I posted recently of people saying "F them," like somebody died in prison from medical neglect, and they're like "F them," they're a criminal, and it's like, all right, cool. So we're going to favorite all of these, and like this is how people think about other humans. Like it's an issue. We have to fix this because it is a generational problem that we have to fix. And I don't mean that as a certain age group. I mean, it is something that's passed from generation to generation. So.
So, and Dion said that she was speaking in reference to donations and contributions that are given in exchange for favors, the big corps.
Oh yeah, I don't take them. So they don't have any influence over me specifically. So that's not a concern that I have. They may have influence over other people who make some decisions, and if I am responsible for their role, they can find another job, and we will replace them, because that is a problem.
Ooh, okay. So, Archradish has a question that is important. They're all important. What kind of oversight do you support to reduce or eliminate abuse of homeschooled children?
This is a really good question.
Do you want to put a pin in it?
I mean, I want to give you some answer because, like, and that's why we're here. I don't want to avoid the question. Specifically,
well, not avoiding. Sorry, I didn't mean avoid.
What kind of oversight do I support to reduce them? Okay, so let me. Okay, so you're not asking for a specific plan, which is helpful because there isn't one currently.
You got to have a specific plan, Jared.
So I would support oversight that checks in on those families. And the concern that I have is fixing the abuse that's happening without tearing the families apart unless absolutely necessary. Because I'm not going to say that there aren't times that isn't necessary. I'm aware. I'm also aware that it is profitable to separate families unnecessarily so that they end up in certain systems. I don't know if that answers your question well enough, but that's what I have for an AMA.
What steps would you take to try and stop the gun violence?
The question that will not and should not stop being asked. Someone filled out a feedback form on the website, taking umbrage to the written statement that's on the site about firearms. And when I reread it, I need to rewrite it because it is not written very clearly. So let me try and say it as clearly as I can right now. I personally don't care about firearms. That is coming from a position of privilege. And what I don't want to do is take steps in an attempt to prevent one form of violence against one group of people in our state while allowing other people to have firearms who are also committing violence against other groups of people in our state. And I'm going to clarify that more here than I think I have in the past. I am talking about the police in that case. Like I don't know how to make that more clear. Like if we're going to talk about firearms violence, we can't ignore the government side of that. So like when people ask like, hey, are we going to crack down on guns? uh, sure, like let's try to find a way to prevent firearms violence. But most people when they say that are thinking of just civilian on civilian, non government public officials. They're not thinking of the police side. And you know, we can't ignore that. And if you're not thinking of that over the past 3 years, I'm not sure what you've been looking at. Like we have it's not just it's not outside of our state. It happens in our state. Like one of the first people I interviewed on this campaign was an activist from Birmingham who was protesting the death of EJ Bradford in Hoover, and was arrested with I want to say it's upwards of 100 people who were just there to say, hey, maybe the police shouldn't murder our citizens. Like, and I know it's kind of a non-answer, and I'll follow it up with, I want to find a solution, but I don't want to leave one group with the ability to continue to cause violence or implement violence against another group. So I will give the same plea I do every time somebody brings this question up. I don't have that answer. If you do or have ideas, I am all ears. I have an open availability on my calendar. Schedule a call. Let's hash through some details and try to address the overall problem. Because one thing that doesn't seem to get mentioned enough is the majority of people committing large acts of violence with firearms are white men. And like, uh, we can't say that people of a different race or a different gender don't have access to firearms. Like it's something. I'm not saying firearms aren't a problem, because you literally can't do the same type of violence without those devices. But it's not everybody committing those crimes. So, you know, let's solve it, but let's actually solve it, and not haphazardly. There we go.
Haphazardly half-assed.
Yeah, we don't want to haphazardly solve a problem, because then you're actually making it worse at that point, in my opinion.
Okay, so do you think let's do like a 2 minutes on the clock kind of thing, or 1 minute?
Yeah.
Let's do a 60 seconds on the clock.
You're going to have to rein me in. It's fine.
I know.
Don't ask complicated questions like, how are we going to solve gun violence?
No, I know. Okay, so we already...
Taylor, not Dion.
It's also a dig at you, because you
I ramble. No, it's fine. I do. No, it's fine. I got it.
Okay, so we've already talked about legalization and decriminalization of marijuana. Somebody said, this is Meaty Bone on Reddit.
Okay.
They have a very obvious and serious issue with heroin and meth. So can you address that heroin and meth as well?
Yeah. So
60 seconds, go.
Yeah, so it goes back to the same problem I have with the injustice system as a whole. We are focused too much on punishing people for the actions they take, rather than trying to find out why they do the thing in the first place, to stop everybody from wanting or needing to do the thing. So if we talk about heroin use, morphine abuse, opioids in general, narcotics, pick and drug, let's find out why they're using and abusing those drugs and solve for that, and get to a root cause and solve for that. I don't think punishing people for those actions is the right course to keep it from happening again, because it hasn't worked in 400 years. So why would it start now? Lindsay asked on did you miss your answer? And I think you did. So I will quickly. It was a quick answer, so you probably did. Yes, let's decriminalize marijuana. Like the answer, like I can't do it, but yes, let's do it.
So we have already covered the decriminalization of marijuana, lottery, grocery tax.
Yeah, we need to get rid of it. Again, not something I can do, but yeah, let's get rid of the grocery tax. We're one of three or four states that still tax a human necessity. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, there aren't many. It might be more than three, but it's not anywhere near a large percentage of our country.
Some Kellogg, whatever. Let's say you win. Let's say you win. What in the hell can be done about the legislature? Even if you veto every bill, I believe there are enough to override a veto.
Currently, there definitely are. You are spot on. That is something I can't fix. That is something you all have to help with. Like I can vote for my representative in my area, but I can't help you for your area. I will also say I'm aware that you may not have any good choices because neither do I. Like at the primaries, I think I had 4 people to choose from on the entire ballot for the primary. So there's 4 races out of the like 40 or 50 positions possible. There were like 4. So like, I get it. We have to try. So what I would say is if you have a seat that is uncontested, and it's a smaller local election, to Curtis's point, if you're still here, like if there's a smaller election coming up and they're uncontested, run for it. Like especially like a small corner. We elect corners, right? So you literally you have a very influential job on determining cause of death. So run for that. If it gets uncontested, get in and affect that area. The legislature is a little bit harder, but it's a similar situation. If you're not contested currently and there's even a remote chance, freaking run for it. Like do it. The only thing that could happen, or the worst that could happen, is you don't win. But at least you've now shown them that they're not going to win without a fight. It's kind of late in the game. Like I'm not saying it's going to be easy or likely, but you could still try.
All right, are you ready for the big one?
Sure.
Well, this is not the big one, but this is the one that I said, yeah. Hoopty Rider said, "What are your complaints with Kay Ivey that inspired you to run?"
No, I mean that's an easy one. That's not hard.
I didn't say hard. I said it was big.
Oh, okay. That's not hard. She.
Oh, that's what she. It's not hard, but it's sorry, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She approved the allocation of $400 million in COVID funds for a new prison to be built while we were being investigated by the Department of Justice for the conditions in our prisons, rather than trying to address the conditions in our prisons. And against the advice and some very soft rules from the federal government on how that funding should be spent, she decided that it would be cool to spend it on new prisons and sell bonds to make new facilities to put people in. Like that's a big one.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Can I answer scary like thriller, not just like horror?
Yeah, sure.
Convergence.
I've never seen that one.
It was actually produced here locally by a buddy of mine, and it's good. Like it's a psychological thriller. So go check it out. It's a good movie.
All right.
It revolves around the which one? It was the church bombings in '96. Was it? I think it was the Birmingham church bombings in like '96. I think that's the year it was. It revolves around that, but not like it's the aftermath. I don't want to give away too much, but
Yeah, no spoilies.
yeah.
Okay, so and then this is not really a question, but I said it was a concern. In the Huntsville Reddit, Red-Eared Swashbuckler says, I've never seen someone try so hard to lose the election. I like him, but he's running a campaign like he's in Oregon or California. Why are you running your campaign like this, Jared?
Why am I running like I'm not? I'm running like we're in Alabama. Like I'm reaching the 1.4 million people in the state who don't think that their voice matters. So I, I don't think I'm running in Oregon. I don't have a different answer.
I mean, yeah. And then I can't talk to Shasagami. I don't know. Whatever.
Don't try.
In Birmingham, don't try. It's a Birmingham. It's a Reddit name. They said when your beard is your identity. Dot dot dot. So Jared, is your beard your identity, and why are you using that as your logo?
It is a marketing tactic. Like, I enjoy having a beard. I have actually enjoyed having it longer than I've ever had it, and it's been great. Um, why are we using it? I mean, it is a way of creating a graphical representation that people can recognize quickly, but also I don't want people to think that my campaign is all about my ideas. And that's why we have open meetings. That's why the first 4 months were me just scheduling meetings with everyday citizens and residents or people who wanted to move back to our state but are scared to, and saying why, like what's wrong. Like I am a person running for office, but I realize that our state has been actively fighting against most of our residents, and I want this campaign to I want people to know it's not me trying to make my decisions for the state. I There are things that I won't go back on, but it's all revolving around making sure people maintain that right to dignity that we keep mentioning. Maybe not in this life, but generally speaking, every human has a right to live a life of dignity, and like that's the baseline. Like whatever decision we're making is going to start there, and everything else is cool. What has the state done to affect you? As an example, Lowndes County, I had no idea that there was a as big of an issue of straight piping, which is taking uh, your raw sewage and pumping it straight into your backyard. So they have cesspools in their backyard in a lot of places, and I didn't realize it was as big of a problem as it is. And I wouldn't know that if I weren't actively asking people, "Hey, what's wrong? Like where is our state failing its residents? Tell me so that we can fix it." And the beard is a way of disassociating Jared, the one individual, from the campaign. I think that was more than 60 seconds, but
It's okay.
we didn't actually put it.
Dion said the prison system is profitable for the state. How do you feel about reallocations of some of that profit into reentry programs, jobs, job readiness programs, mental health treatment, and reform, to name a few?
Yes, I'm all for putting that money into places and resources that will help bring people back into society as a whole human being, as close as we can get after the atrocities that they've been through inside of the system, to ensure that they don't end up back in the system. Like the focus is making it not a profitable business like that. To
It's not
Curtis's
a
point,
TJ Maxx.
yeah. Well, to Curtis's point, like government shouldn't be run like a business because we're not here. Sorry, we shouldn't be here to make money. We should be here to govern a people to make sure everybody you know, has a fair shot in life to live that life of dignity that I mentioned earlier. Um, so yeah, let's reallocate funding and make sure it goes into places that are benefiting all of society, including those who are currently incarcerated that need to get out of the system.
Christina said, in pertaining to the miners' strike that's been going on for 16 months now, you are trying to help them. What as governor could be done to change the things for them?
An interesting one that I don't know how I implement directly, but one thing I have been wanting to fix, and Taylor just disappeared, so hopefully she'll jump back in. But one thing I'm wanting to address is the exploitation of our people and our resources by companies. So earlier, Curtis mentioned, offering tax breaks for Tesla to come in, and it's like, my answer is still just no. Like, we're not going to give somebody a tax break who's going to come in and not treat our residents well. That is not good governance for me. Will it end poorly? Maybe, but I would rather a company be mad at me than have them exploit our people. So the idea there, though, let me follow up or finish that thought. The idea would be, currently they're on strike for my understanding, Christina, correct me if I'm misremembering this, but the idea was that they signed contracts with one company. The company went bankrupt or got bought out by Warrior Met, who's currently there, and they are not honoring the contract. So the miners have gone on strike because they aren't getting the deal that they were told by the previous owners of the previous company. And for me, Warrior Met's not going anywhere. The mine itself, it can't. So let's make them pay their workers a living wage and use some of that $300 million net profit in the last quarter that they made to help the rest of the state, because they are literally mining our resources and profiting off of it, and we can't fund our schools. So things like that.
Dion said, what is your stance on restoration of rights after one's debt has been paid, like prison, probation, parole, all that?
Yeah. My position cannot influence can't change how I would like the policy to change. But position is, me personally, I don't think anyone should ever lose their right to vote. Some people don't like that position, and I understand the mentality, but I want people to think through that logically. There is not a group of convicted felons or criminal elements that would make a substantial change to our policies. And if there is, we have to fix how that's happening, not just take rights away from people. Like, voting is literally one of the only things we can do to try and influence the government and how it affects us. And I don't think that should be taken away from people. So personally, that shouldn't be something that has to be restored, and they should just have it. Now, that being said, something that has to be addressed is, this state leaves that decision up to 3 people, and we deny it at they deny that request for either pardons or paroles at a sickening rate of like 80% or so currently. I hope that answers your question, Dion.
Monica from Facebook wants to know if you prefer NSYNC or Backstreet Boys.
Oh, see, see, now I have to remember which band it was. Which band? What did I use their song for one of the first viral videos?
Oh, Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys.
So,
yeah.
It's the correct answer. All right. Yeah. Okay, right answer. All right. Now this one could make or break the campaign. If wrong answer will have me walking out into my front yard and removing the sign. Are you ready?
Sure.
This is also for Amanda and Anita. So in Gilmore Girls, are you Team Jess, Team Dean, or Team Logan? Do you want me to remind you who's who?
No, I'm well
Okay.
aware after having seen that show 6 times at least. Um, I mean, they're all problematic people.
Jared.
I'm thinking we didn't put a clock up.
Oh, jeez. Amanda said, "Careful with this one."
Yeah, there is only one right answer.
There is only one right answer.
Oh my gosh.
You got to pick the right one.
I mean,
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna go with Jess.
Yes, that is the right answer.
I mean, they're fictional characters, but
Don't
overall,
ruin it, Jared.
no, I was gonna overall like Jess. If they were real people, seems like the logical choice on who seems to be the overall best human being.
Um,
Problematic still, but
you know, Rory is problematic, so it's fine.
shows anyway. Keep
Pecan pie or pumpkin pie?
say that one more time.
Pecan pie or pumpkin pie?
Both combined. I had that at Cheesecake Factory once, and it was amazing.
Oh, okay.
It was like a double decker. It was both, and it was really good.
I may have to make that.
See, look at that, Curtis. I don't know if you're still here, but I can compromise.
Oh God. Are action figures just dolls and boys are just too fragile to admit it?
Oh, I think it depends on the. I think it depends on the size of the action figure. So if we're talking about GI Joes, I don't know that I would call those dolls.
But what
If
about
you
like a
go up,
Barbie doll?
well, no, if you go up to like the 12-inch GI Joe that had cloth clothing you could put on, like I mean that's a doll, sure. I mean,
Okay. Um, what's your favorite fiction book genre?
I sci-fi probably. Wait, fiction, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Sci-fi.
fiction.
Probably sci-fi.
Foosackleys or Zaxby's or other?
I'm gonna answer in an odd way. I'm gonna say Foosackleys, but not necessarily because of the food, but because of how I have experienced them treating their employees. Tangentially, not like I've never worked there, but I've had family who has, and they, at least that location specifically, treated their employees really well.
So this one is from a very special person named Taylor, and
Okay.
she wants to know, what do you admire most in each of your children?
My eldest has a heart bigger than I give him credit for regularly. Reese has
That weirdo.
he has no shame and is just his authentic self at all times, and I love that. Ian, selfishly, he probably likes me the most, so that's how it feels. So I think that's part of just the change in work life balance between the three. I've been able to spend a lot more time with him, so I think that's part of it.
You're gonna make me cry. Okay. I love those
I'm
kids.
trying not to.
I know. I was like, okay, so Great B Scott said, "Are you attending Furnace Fest?" And I will say, I think the campaign should send him to Furnace Fest. So if you want to,
So I will. I would like to go to Furnace Fest, and if I do, it will be because of one band. and it will be because of that band. That would be Five Iron Frenzy.
That was the next part of the question is, if so, which band are you most excited about seeing?
By far, it would be Five Iron. I literally don't know who else is playing. That's the only band I know that is playing. They I encourage everybody to go listen to their most recent album. It came out in January of last year, and if you enjoy My Campaign, I think you will enjoy their album.
What is your favorite state park?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't been to a lot of them recently. I have very fond memories at Cheehaw State Park up in northeast Alabama, up in the actual mountains. Well, for our state, I have fond memories of that. But that was, we hiked there. We practice hiked there before we went to New Mexico for a 2-week trip. So I have some very fond memories at Cheehaw.
Do you think you will win the beard contest?
That's a really good question, Anna. We probably should have led with that question, so that we can shamelessly plug the event that beard contest is happening at. I would be happy to win that competition. Depending on who else shows up, I know several people who should win over me if they're there. So September 3rd, shameless plug time. Shameless plug for September 3rd at Cedar Street Social Club in Mobile, Alabama. We are having a benefit concert with Gabe Willis of Pawpaw's Medicine Cabinet. I will be speaking and having conversations with everybody. And then we're also having a badass beard competition because it is World Beard Day. So if you're in the Mobile area and would like to come hang out with me, have appetizers, listen to some really good music, throw some dollar bills at a beard competition to see who has the best beard, buy a ticket. It is a campaign fundraiser. Like there's no, it's not being hidden anywhere. Like that is a fundraiser. So, we're selling tickets. We're giving you some appetizers, some good conversations and good music. And there is a VIP option available. So if you're in the area, the VIP option is, gives you an option to schedule a 1-to-1 in-person meeting with me for about 30 minutes over something like coffee. If you're not a coffee
and you get
drinker,
to
we can
pluck a beard hair.
I mean, if you want one, sure. I will give you a beard hair if you want one.
No, I said you get to pluck one.
Oh, you get to pull one? Oh, I mean, that seems masochistic.
Well, apparently you are.
I'm running for office. So,
if you were a drag queen, what song would you lip sync to for your debut performance? Do not say anything by Five Iron Frenzy, Jared. Oliver John.
I don't think that's. I mean, that doesn't seem like the right.
Okay, you're right. It's not.
It doesn't seem like the right music to do that to. Being as I've only been to one drag show in my 38 years of life, I don't know that I have an immediate answer for that. Maybe a.
What about let's give them something to talk about?
I mean, that one would work, but only if we can do the. I remember the guy's name. I don't remember the artist's name. It's not the regular version. It was like an R&B artist or something. I have to go look it up.
Anita said, "Just say it's raining men."
Oh my gosh. Hey Tully, you're in Daphne. I would love to see you at our event in September on September 3rd. We have an event. It's going to be at Cedar Street Social Club. I would love to see you there.
If you were thrown in water, would you sink or swim?
Oh, I float.
Oh, okay. So you're a witch.
Yes, evidently.
Okay.
Or it's just training on how to float in water.
I was talking to Trey beforehand. He was like, and when he was saying he was just going to ask inappropriate questions, he said he was going to ask if you were a witch. So that was for Trey.
Yeah.
Anita said the "It's Raining Men" was the NyQuil talking. Well, I don't have any more questions. Okay. I hope I answered all of them. Dion, you had some really good questions, so I hope we answered all of yours. I just remember seeing your name several times.
Yeah.
if anybody wants to know anything, what color socks are you wearing?
Currently, black and red.
Yeah, if anybody else has any weird questions, we might do another AMA.
Yeah. This was fun. Like I enjoyed this back and forth and answering off the cuff questions. I honestly thought there would be more personal questions. So
I did too.
that was
Yeah.
in hindsight, knowing that the entire platform is "Are you pissed at our state?" Like policy questions make a lot of sense. Like I get
Yeah.
it actually, in hindsight, makes a whole lot of sense. Amanda makes a good point. Please buy your tickets ahead of time. The link is in my bio. So if you go to the platform, the link in my bio on the platform, the big green banner at the top of the website should say buy tickets now. I don't think we mentioned a price. The general admission is $35. The VIP ticket's $100, and then the beard competition will be the votes are dollars. So bring some extra ones and get ready to drop those for your favorite beard at the competition. We are at Cedar Street Social Club. I will say this: if oh no, we had to start with a drink. We don't know what it is yet because we have a special drink for the event that will be there. Our mixologist is currently coming up with it right now. So we will have.
What is your favorite drink?
Dark and stormy a lot of the time. So that's what dark rum and ginger beer and a lime, I think, is the citrus that gets put in. At least what's supposed to be in it. I mean, if we don't have lime, we'll use lemon, but
good times.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm gonna go eat my dinner now.
Yeah, we'll have a specialty drink show up September 3rd from 7:30 to 9. 7:30 is appetizers and hanging out. 8 is when music starts. We'll take a mid break or break in the middle. I'll talk a little bit, and then we'll go back to music, and the beard competition will be happening throughout. So hope to see everybody there. We normally have campaign strategy and field operations meetings on Saturdays from 9 to 10 and 10 to 11. It seems like the past couple of weeks I've had conflicting events that I can't reschedule, and that is true again this week. So we are going to have to do those either later in the day or a different time, or a different day rather. Stay subscribed on social media, and we'll post an event when that's going to be scheduled. So anyway, I think that I've got it. I'm good. So unless you have other questions, I think we can wrap it up.
What did you have for dinner?
What did we have for dinner?
Alicia's gonna be mad.
No, like I scarfed it down right before we came back here. So it was, I don't know. It was rice and something else.
Oh, well, I'm going to eat mine now, so okay. I will holler at you later.
That doesn't sound like a question somebody else asked. So.
No, it wasn't. It was me.
Yep. See. All right. Y'all have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have more questions, let us know. We can do this again. Happy to. And if you ever want to schedule a meeting, the link's on the website. We'll see you then.